Hi everyone, it's Emma here, and this week I am asking the question, why do I get anxiety right before my period? So anxiety is another common symptom that can affect women who are already affected by PMS, or perhaps this is the one symptom that you notice that you're struggling with every month. So I just want to talk a little bit about why you might be getting this symptom, anxiety, around the time of your period, and of course what you can then do to help. So I'm just going to get stuck straight in. I've got my list of likely reasons. So the first one is your natural fall in hormones. So as I've talked about, you've got your kind of monthly cycle in terms of your hormones that are fluctuating, and at the end of the month, in order to give you your period, your hormones, mainly estrogen and progesterone, fall off in order to give you your period. But it is a fairly drastic fall off, and unfortunately this drop in hormones, specifically estrogen actually, can in some cases give rise to symptoms, and in the case of anxiety, this fall in hormones can often affect other hormones and neurotransmitters relating to mood, so such as your dopamine or your serotonin. So this fall in estrogen, it's similar to in menopause, that this fluctuating estrogen levels can cause havoc with a number of other hormones. So sometimes we say that your monthly period is like a mini menopause almost. It's that drop in hormones can influence a number of symptoms as a result of its effect on other hormones and neurotransmitters and your blood sugar and things, as we'll go on to explore. However, what I would say is, as much as we can become a little bit vulnerable with that drop off in hormones, that drop off in hormones is quite normal. We need our estrogen and progesterone to drop off to give us our period, and then they start to build up as the month goes on in order to help us ovulate and things like that. So to some extent it's normal, but what I would say is, if you are experiencing symptoms that are troublesome and you want to try and overcome, then we can help ourselves in a range of other ways, as I will go on to explore throughout this chat. What I would say is, as these hormones drop off, we're individual, we might get different symptoms. But if you find that anxiety is the main symptom, you don't have many others, and it's that main symptom, anxiety, we do have certain herbs which could help to target that symptom quite specifically. So something like the passiflora tablets, just for a little bit of nervous system support. These are quite nice to take around the time if you find that anxiety or stress symptom crops up. And we've also got the passiflora spray, which is quite nice if you're on the go as well, just a spray form of that product. So that's just one to consider if that is your main symptom. Moving on, in terms of anxiety, why it might be happening, I want to talk a little bit more about hormone imbalance. So as I say, this drop off in hormones is quite normal, but if these symptoms are a bit more pronounced, if you've noticed other symptoms, perhaps you're getting your period more often than normal or not quite frequently enough, or there's other symptoms as well as the anxiety, then there might be a more pronounced hormone imbalance. And in that case, we would suspect that the hormone imbalance is the root of the cause, which is then influencing the anxiety or any other symptom that you might experience. So as a nutritionist who works around the holistic approach to health, we always want to consider the root of the cause. So as I say, the small drop off in hormones is quite normal, but if there is a more pronounced hormone imbalance, this could potentially be contributing to your symptoms as well. So this would be where some remedies such as your agnus castus would come in, if there's suspected estrogen dominance, some soy isoflavones if you suspect you're a little bit low in estrogen, and so you're suffering with these low symptoms, low mood, anxiety, skin issues, for example, could be that part of that picture as well. So these are the kind of herbs we would be considering if we suspect there's a wider hormone imbalance and it isn't just that one symptom that we're struggling with at the end of the month. Number 3, I want to talk a little bit about blood sugar regulation, because blood sugar or dysregulation can quite directly influence anxiety and stress, and specifically the anxiety, I have to say. So again, this is just something to consider. Again, this could happen at any time of the month, but we do become a little bit more vulnerable as the estrogen drops off. So you might find that the symptoms are more pronounced around that time, but you might be able to notice some patterns in terms of your blood sugar regulation. So if you're getting a bit hungry, or as we'll go on to explore in a bit more detail after certain foods, for example. So in terms of blood sugar regulation, diet is a really useful tip to help regulate your blood sugar and support your insulin. So in terms of your carbohydrates, lots of lovely whole grains, high fibre, a source of healthy protein and healthy fats with every meal. There are some supplements which can help to improve blood sugar regulation more specifically. You've got your magnesium, which helps support insulin sensitivity. Cinnamon, a lovely spice that you can use just in your cooking, breakfast, mix it through for a little hint of sweetness, but really good for your blood sugar. And chromium is quite a specific mineral that you can take in supplement form, again, if you're keen to really hone in and focus on improving your blood sugar regulation. So those are just some nice gentle supplements that you can work into your regime. And if anyone has any questions around those, want any specific doses or instructions on those, just feel free as always to comment or get in touch. The next section on my list to talk about is some factors which could then affect your blood sugar and you might not realise it so much. So I've got sleep, alcohol and caffeine. These are kind of affecting us in a number of ways. First of all, they're all igniting our stress response, and that in turn is going to influence your blood sugar. So when we are sleep deprived in particular, your blood sugar can become a little bit more wobbly. So after a late night, you might notice that you're feeling more anxious than normal. And talking around all of this, it's trying to detect some patterns. Are you just experiencing that anxiety at one point in the month, which could suggest hormones, but actually, as I say, because our hormones are dropping off, we then become more vulnerable. So you might just find that you're not quite coping with sleep deprivation as well as you normally would, and that could be around the blood sugar issue. Alcohol affects your blood sugar quite directly, and also again the next day, if you've had quite a few drinks, then your blood sugar can also be affected. So we would say, just to be sensible with alcohol, go for a good quality, a red wine or something like that, and always have alcohol with food, and that just helps to balance the effects of the alcohol on your blood sugar. And red wine, for example, has lots of lovely antioxidants in, which are quite a protective element. So just giving it a little bit more thought about the type of alcohol and how much, and also how you're consuming it. It's always going to be helpful, or a milder response in your system if you have it alongside some good quality food. Caffeine as well, really, especially for anxiety, it really ignites your stress response and can affect your blood sugar. So you'll get that initial high in energy, your blood sugar rises, but then you get the crash in blood sugar, and also it can be a crash in your mood and heightened anxiety and things as well. So hopefully that helps. Just some tips. There are some lovely decaf options, natural decaf options, rather than being removed with chemicals, or coffee alternatives such as our bamboo is a lovely option as well. Next, I just want to touch on nutrient deficiencies. Again, this might be something that we are deficient in all the time, but with that drop in hormones, we just become a little bit more vulnerable, and these nutritional deficiencies start to flag up. A couple in particular, iron, especially if we're having quite heavy monthly periods. Iron is directly related to your energy levels, but also the anxiety can be heightened and change around your energy levels as well. Magnesium is another one. Magnesium is so calming for both the body and mind. So again, specifically, a really nice one to consider when we're talking about anxiety. Also things like pain perception. So if we're having monthly cramps or anything, magnesium can help calm those, and that in turn could help with symptoms of anxiety. You might be feeling anxious if you're struggling to manage the pain or discomfort as well. Again, there's lovely supplement options. We would always say to prioritise diet, so fresh whole food options of your iron, your your meats, your leafy greens, your whole grains. Magnesium is the same, lovely whole grains, nuts, seeds. Again, your vegetables as well. But there are supplement options. You've got your Floridix iron, Spatone is another one. And then magnesium, there's lots of lovely brands. And of course, magnesium is also found in combination in our balanced mineral drink alongside vitamin D and other nutrients that we really need to be getting enough of. My last tip around why we might be feeling more anxious is dehydration. Again, this can be an ongoing effort, but potentially when those hormones are dropping, just every little helps in order to help keep us feeling at our best. Dehydration can have, again, quite direct effects on our mood, concentration, stress, anxiety, all these things. Dehydration can often be an underlying factor that we don't always consider. So again, just to reiterate, I talk about this a lot, but I really like people to aim between 1 and 5 and 2 litres of water daily, and that should be a minimum intake. Any additional drink options should be over and above that lovely minimum intake of water, and perhaps just think about adding some fresh fruit or herbs or something if you're keen to jazz up your water. But ultimately it's what works well for you. How can you get enough water in? Sometimes the little tracker bottles can be quite motivating as well as a nice option. So hopefully that helps everyone. As always, please feel free to comment, ask any questions. Also, please do subscribe to our Avogo YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of any new videos we do. Thanks, take care and speak soon.